Live from London, this is BBC News. The Met Police says it will take no further action over claims Andrew Mountbatten Windsor asked his bodyguard to dig up information on his accuser Virginia Giuffre. Belarus releases more than 100 political prisoners after a deal with the US, including some senior opposition leaders. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will meet President Zelensky and European leaders in Berlin this weekend to discuss peace plans as Russia launches one of the largest attacks on southern Ukraine since its full-scale invasion began. Israel says it's killed a senior Hamas commander in a strike on a car in Gaza. The territory's civil defense agency says 4 Palestinians were killed. And angry fans stormed the stadium grounds in India after Lionel Messi's visit ended in just 20 minutes.
Take a look at my ticket that cost 12,000 rupees. We didn't even get to see Messi's face.
Hello, I'm Karen Giannoni. The Metropolitan Police have decided not to launch a criminal investigation into reports that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor asked his taxpayer-funded bodyguard to investigate Virginia Giuffre in 2011. The Met said a further assessment has not revealed any additional evidence of criminal acts or misconduct. Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, has not commented on the reports but has consistently denied all allegations against him. Virginia Giuffre's family has issued a statement. It reads, "We are deeply disappointed that the Metropolitan Police have dropped their investigation into Andrew Mountbatten Windsor without explanation and without speaking with us, Virginia's family. We emailed with a detective from the Metropolitan Police yesterday, Friday, December the 12th, who gave us no indication this announcement was imminent. Indeed, he asked us if we had any evidence we would like to present. We had not yet replied." Well, it goes on to say, with the Epstein files about to be released by Congress since the passage of the Epstein Transparency Act, we are surprised that the Metropolitan Police didn't wait to see what further evidence might appear. While we have hailed the UK's overall handling of the case of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor previously, today we feel justice has not been served. Our North America correspondent Sean Dilley is following developments.
The line coming out from the United Kingdom today from Scotland Yard is that they have assessed allegations that were first reported in the Mail newspaper in October. It was alleging that in 2011 that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, had asked his Metropolitan Police bodyguard to do some digging on Virginia Giuffre. It was alleged in that publication that he'd passed a date of birth and national social security number to do any digging. Now, the mechanism for this we'll come on to, but the Metropolitan Police say that they've assessed the allegations, that they haven't uncovered any evidence of any criminal behaviour, so therefore they will not be proceeding to a full investigation. Their thoughts, of course, are with Ms Giuffre and anyone else impacted by the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Mechanism of this is that high-profile figures who have security around the world, including Andrew, have a Metropolitan Police royalty protection officer. They're armed officers. They certainly retain that armed capability in the United States, and they're well linked up certainly with police officers around the world. The Metropolitan Police Specialist Crime Command would have looked into this. They would have had a look at any contacts that were there, and clearly on this occasion, nothing to substantiate launching a full investigation would be their version on that one. And this matters because obviously royalty protection officers around the world are entrusted with very sensitive information to keep some of the most sensitive figures safe and alive.
And Sean, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, hasn't commented on these reports, but this dates back to 2011, and that was the time of the picture that we're seeing now, published by a newspaper of the two meetings.
Yes, that's right. I mean, again, just to reiterate, as I said a moment ago, 2011 was when the the Mail had said the information was allegedly passed, and you're quite right, because this is where this links to photos beyond is, of course, Andrew was specifically asked about this photo when he did that now infamous Newsnight interview some years ago at this point, saying that he wasn't even sure whether it was his hand, and he was saying that he wasn't sure that it was a photo of him and he wasn't sure that it wasn't, so something he's never commented on. But he's just one of the high-profile figures which has moved on here in the United States, not just from Andrew, but for example to President Trump, who's never denied having known in any sense Jeffrey Epstein, but said that he and Epstein's relationship as friends had broken up in the early 2000s before the 2008 conviction. Former President Bill Clinton, pictured in the latest photos released by in Capitol Hill lawmakers and the Oversight Committee, Microsoft founder Bill Gates among them, all sorts of names that were already associated. So the new photos haven't necessarily taken anything further forward. They haven't suggested any wrongdoing by anybody whatsoever in the photographs. And of course it comes ahead of a deadline that's now been set in the United States at the Department of Justice. They have until Friday next week to release, critically now, these words are important, most but not necessarily all of those papers, because anything that relates to an ongoing investigation, anything that could relate to particularly sensitive victims could be withheld. So we can expect more calls for transparency, because when US lawmakers voted for that, they wanted the maximum transparency. It's even called the Epstein Files Transparency Act. But already questions from Democrats on the Oversight Committee in Congress saying they want all of the papers released, not just most.
Sean Dilley. Belarus has freed more than 120 political prisoners, including the opposition leader Viktor Babariko and the Nobel Peace Prize winner Ales Bialyatsky. Another opposition politician, Maria Kalesnikova, has also been released. The prisoners were due to be taken to Lithuania, but most were instead unexpectedly sent to Ukraine. Only Ales Bialyatsky arrived in Lithuania along with 7 foreign nationals. The prisoner release was brokered by the United States, which is lifting sanctions on Belarusian potash. That's an important fertilizer in return. Our Eastern Europe correspondent Sarah Rainsford's in Lithuania, where some of the freed prisoners were expected to arrive.
The US Special Envoy to Belarus has been in Minsk for a couple of days holding talks with the authoritarian leader there, Alexander Lukashenko. And as a result of those talks, what he has offered to Belarus is the removal of sanctions on potash, a key fertilizer. But what he's getting in return for that is what these people here are interested in. And that is the release of some very prominent names amongst the Belarusian opposition. Figures like Masha Kolesnikova, I guess she's the biggest name. She, of course, became the face, one of the key faces of the protest, the massive opposition protest in Belarus that started in 2020 after an election there was held. The result was heavily contested. Alexander Lukashenko declared victory, and hundreds of thousands of people in Belarus came out in protest. There was massive political repression then, a brutal crackdown. Masha Kolesnikova was one of the people who was imprisoned at that point. Now, these people here are coming to meet her because after more than 5 years, she is now being released as part of this deal. Viktor Babariko, who was trying to run for president against Alexander Lukashenko, he's also being released. Ales Bialyatsky, who is a Nobel Prize winner, the head of the Vyasna human rights organization, he is also being released. So there's a lot of excitement here amongst the crowd because this is a day they've been waiting for a very long time. I've spoken to Masha Kolesnikova's sister, Tatiana. I asked her how she was feeling, how Masha was feeling. She's spoken to her by video phone. She says she is just really happy to be free.
Sarah Rainsford in Lithuania. Well, let's speak to journalist Tatiana Ashurkovich, who left Belarus because of political persecution and is now in the UK. Tatiana, thank you for being with us. What is your reaction to the events of the last few hours?
Hi, thank you for inviting me and thank you for your attention to this topic. You're right, it is a huge day for us all. I don't know a single Belarusian who hasn't cried today. And I think the reason is among the people who were released, there are some really big names. You mentioned Viktor Babariko wanted to run for president in 2020, and his colleagues Maria Kolesnikova and Maxim Znak. And there is also Ales Bialyatsky, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. So it is a huge, huge relief for us. But of course, Lukashenko is a dictator, so he sent Maria, Maxim, and Viktor to Ukraine, and it sounds like a revenge. So there is no surprise, unfortunately.
Right, and what you're referring to is that we had been expecting them all to be sent to Lithuania, and we were speaking to our correspondent in Vilnius, the capital, but then the following hour we learnt that the majority of them had actually been sent to Ukraine instead.
Yes, for sure, because this is a normal game for Lukashenko. Unfortunately, he always do everything to make things worse, and I think he is really afraid of the crowd, because I know that there are a lot of people who were willing to meet Victor and Maria and Maxim because they are our heroes.
Why do you think this has happened now? What do you make of the timing? We've got these talks about the future of Ukraine going on in Berlin this very weekend, and this happens on Saturday afternoon. This number of political prisoners are released, and many of them, as you say, very big names in the Belarusian opposition.
Yeah, you're right. I think we are shocked right now. It is an emotional moment, but Lukashenko is a dictator, as I mentioned, and he will do anything to keep his power. So right now he sees that Russia hasn't been winning the war in Ukraine for years, and he always wants to be on the side of the strong. So he is looking for ways to adjust, to fix relations with Europe and the United States, to lift the sanctions. He